Hello and welcome inside the Red Mile Rundown, episode 31. Grateful that you have made us part of your podcast rotation. The Flames season has come to an end. Plenty to get into, and we're going to do just that. I am Johnny Stopin. Alongside me, as always, my co-host, Robert Munich. How are you today, Robert?
I'm doing great. I've officially moved. I'm in Calgary now, full time, so that's very exciting. And my goodness, there's a lot to talk about when it comes to the Flames right now. Holy,
there is a bucket to talk about. Glad you made it to Calgary safe. Glad you're getting settled in. No more BC to Calgary road trips for that guy. Robert, end of the season, the Flames are right in it, right to the bitter end there. It ends up being the first tiebreaker that sees them out of the playoffs officially. What'd you make of the final push? What'd you make of the final week? And how disappointed are you to watch that last couple of games? They just came up just a little bit short here.
Oh man, it's heartbreaking. Like it was brutal. That second last night of the season when Anaheim gave up the goal with 20 seconds left to Minnesota to push that game to overtime and get the Wild into the playoffs, and that is devastating. Like legitimately devastating for the Flames, for their fans, the players. Oh my God, dude. I feel so bad because they worked so hard. They played, so much above expectations this year, especially in their last 15 games. Like they played some outstanding hockey to finish the year, and man, they totally deserve better. They absolutely did. I'm right there with like a lot of fans that feel that way.
The Flames finished with a 4-game winning streak, an 8-game point streak, and 17 point streak versus the Pacific Division in 37-game winning streak when they scored 4 or more goals this year. A lot of things fell. They finished the season with an 11-2-3 record in their last 16 games, 96 points, and they missed the playoffs. That Blues run of 12 in a row really did sink the Flames. You and I were calling the Flames dead a couple of weeks ago, both thinking, hey, this isn't a playoff team. But I have to give a ton of credit to the Flames. They looked at the math and they said, we don't care about the math. All we care about is winning our games and putting ourselves in a position to be in the race. And they did exactly that. They proved me a little bit wrong. They proved a lot of other people out there a little bit wrong. And they just came up just a little bit short. It was a gut punch end to the season. Watching the Flames come out against Vegas and struggling in that first period, and they play that second period a little bit nervous, trying to keep their playoff hopes alive. But then you watch the out-of-town scoreboard, seeing the Blues absolutely take Utah out back of the woodshed there, and then you watch the Wild with that late goal to force overtime to give them that point. It just was a hard way to see the season end. But proud of the team. Like, how can you not be proud of the fight of this team? How proud are you of these guys, Robert, and the fight that these guys put in? Like, they did not care about the math. They just went out there and played their game.
Yeah, man. I mean, you can't help but not respect the team, and you can't help but not be proud of what they put on the ice this season. A lot of people, I don't think you and I were in this boat, but there were a lot of people, especially in the national media and fans outside of Calgary, thought that the Flames were going to be in the kind of bottom 3, bottom 5 this year. And
yeah,
I think you and I and quite a few others within the city here and people who cover the team all thought that, no, the Flames are quite a bit better than that. I didn't think they were 96 points good. I definitely didn't think they would be that high up in the standings, but I definitely thought they would be probably outside the bottom 10, kind of in the mushy middle where they ended up. But man, give the players all the credit in the world, man. They played their asses off, and like you said, in the last 16 games, they're 11-2-3. Like that's a pretty crazy run. I know heading into that last stretch of games there, you and I were talking about how the only time that they've put together a pretty lengthy winning streak was at the very beginning of the season when they won their first 5 games. And I think both you and I were very skeptical that they could even pull off something like that, and they did it. So good on them. It was led by Nazem Kadri. Nazem Kadri had 17 points in his last 15 games. Like really, really impressive stuff. Matt Coronato had 13 points in his last 15 games. A guy like Adam Klapka stepped up. He had 9 points during that time and was 4th in team scoring. Like a lot of guys stepped up to the plate. Mackenzie Weegar was outstanding. Joel Hanley was really good. The goaltending, was incredible as per usual. So like so many positives to finish the season. It is a damn shame that they're not there. Like, I don't know about you, but watching these playoffs so far and just seeing the atmospheres and, especially in Canadian markets like Winnipeg and Toronto, you see the crowd, the energy. You're like, oh God, like I wish we had that in Calgary this year. And they're so damn close, so close.
I was tweeting with Derek Wills, play-by-play voice of the Flames, just exactly that thing. I'm like, you watch these first couple of games here, and you saw that whiteout in Winnipeg. You're like, man, what would the Sea of Red been like in Game 3 of that series if that's who they ended up playing in the playoffs? What would that have been like? You had the whiteout versus the Sea of Red. It would have been an incredible spectacle that we just got robbed of now. But these guys, a ton of credit to these guys. You got Nazem Kadri, 9 of his last 12 goals, if I've done the math correctly, was third period or overtime game-winning goals, like game-tying or game-winning goal. Like this guy was on an incredible run. Dustin Wolf, he played 8 games in a row there, something he's rarely done. And winning games, putting his team in a position to win these hockey games. You had the defense play really, really well, really good hockey the last couple weeks of the season here. Guys like Joe Hanley and Braden Pahal found new ways to continue to contribute to this success of this team. And you got some depth scoring as well. Like Coronato came around a little bit. Sharon Govich found the fountain of youth in this last part of the season here to contribute some more. Frost finally scored a goal, which was nice to see. And you had your guys really pull the wagon in the same direction. I give a ton of credit to the coaching staff for having this team prepared each and every night. It's almost like the coaching staff went in that room every day and just they took the standings and they threw them out and didn't let the players see the standings. They said, let's just go play, guys. Like, pressure's off, just go play. And that's how they played hockey. It really seemed up until that Vegas game, they played without the pressure on them. They really seemed to rise to the occasion and to the moment here. And it's a ton of credit for all of these guys here. And it really is. You look at some of these players and you're like, you deserved better because of what you've done for this team. Like Nazem Kadri deserves playoff hockey, a chance to go chase another Stanley Cup. Guys like Rasmus Andersson and Mackenzie Weegar, they deserve to have an opportunity to play longer into the postseason. Dustin Wolf deserves to have a playoff series to get under his belt. All of these guys, you can go through the whole list of the entire roster. And you can see these guys, they deserved more. Klapka, what he came out of nowhere to have a really good end of the season here. So really proud of the job the Flames did. Really proud of what the coaching staff did, the messages that they sent to their players and how the players responded. And at the end of the day, just came up a little bit short. And so it really makes you excited for what's going to be coming up in September and what we could potentially see next year from the Flames. Obviously a conversation for a bit of a different day, but it's not all bad, Robert.
Well, here, just one more thing I want to add.
Yeah, jump in there.
You just the hard part when you kind of dissect the season is there's so many times where you look back on the Flames calendar year here and you think to yourself, like, if they could have just won one more overtime game, one more shootout game. They lost 14 of those this season. 14. Yes. You win one of those, you're in the goddamn playoffs. And then you take a look at their games against the Blues this season. They have the heartbreaking overtime loss where Colton Parayko pushes the puck in along with, I believe it was Dan Vladar's pad. If that goes the other way, the Flames are in. If they just can get 1 point in their back-to-back series against the Blues back in January, if they just get 1 point out of that, they're in the playoffs right now. And even down the stretch drive too. I mean, blowing that lead to Anaheim was devastating. Blowing the lead to Edmonton was devastating. You look at the game against Dallas when they just completely dominate them. They run their show and they can't even get the game to overtime. Yeah. There's just, oh man, there are just so many times you can look back this season and see they were so close to getting that extra point. And it really does show you that every game matters in the NHL. Unless you're one of the elite teams or you're one of the bottom 5 teams. But when you're in kind of that middle, like the kind of middle 20 of the NHL, man, every single game matters. And I think this season really proved that for the Flames.
It's funny. You mentioned earlier that neither of us thought this was a 96-point team. Sorry. This team could easily have had 100 points if they just had a couple of other bounces go their way. And just, that's how it is. You just mentioned it's just there. It's a game of inches and a game of bounces here. Flames, unfortunately, didn't get those bounces. But I was going to say, Robert, it's not all bad, though, because game 82, we got the quadruple solo lap, has 4 Flames make their debuts, including the highly anticipated debut of probably the most exciting prospect since Kachuk or Dustin Wolf, if that's your lane you want to stick in. But Zayne Parekh takes to the ice for the first time as a member of the Calgary Flames officially in a National Hockey League game. How excited were you to watch Zayne? How much fun did you have watching Zayne? And of course, we have 3 other individuals as well that we can talk about as well in that game 82. What'd you make of game 82 and the debut of Zayne Parekh?
Oh man, it was fun. I mean, it sucked that the game didn't mean anything. Like that was really too bad. But to have 4 players make their NHL debuts in the same game, it's never happened before in Flames history. It's the first time that's happened. So they kind of made history that night. And man, there's some really exciting players there. Obviously, started with Zayne Parekh. I mean, I thought he was really, really good. He exceeded my expectations. Keep in mind it is game 82 and LA didn't have their full lineup in and they probably weren't going 100%. But regardless of that fact, Zayne Parekh showed that even at age 19, he can play in the NHL. Even if it's on a third pair at 5-on-5 and he runs a first or second power play unit, this kid can play in the NHL. I thought he handled himself really well out there. I didn't think he looked out of place. The thing that stood out to me was, number one, the skating. Like the guy he's such a beautiful skater. It's unbelievable. And like a couple other things were like his first pass. Like I thought like his outlet passes were really, really crisp, hitting guys in stride. Like, and he's finding seams that maybe other defensemen wouldn't find because he's just got that incredible vision. His hands were great. The offensive instincts were great. Like on his goal there to give the puck to Michael Backlund, then rip back down low in the offensive zone and go to the net. You don't see too many defensemen do stuff like that, especially at 19 years old. So yeah, I thought it was awesome. I thought Parekh was great. It made me a lot more excited for the future because, I think it's fair to say that Flames fans were a little disappointed in his Penticton and his preseason.
100%. We talked about that.
Yeah, like he was really bad during those few weeks there, but man, it looks like he's kind of put on some weight in the gym. It looks like he's almost come back a completely different player. And yeah, man, he was great. He's easily the most exciting prospect since Matthew Tkachuk. I would totally agree with you on that.
Yeah, both of you and I sat here in preseason and we talked about, is his attitude in the right spot? What's going on with him? Does he think he deserves more than this? Like we were questioning the guy a little bit and just say, hey, where's your approach at? Where's your mind at? Where's your head at? Like what are you focused on here at Flames training camp? And then you saw his exit interview from training camp, and he very maturely admitted that he had a bad camp and that he needed to rethink it and come back here with a different attitude. Well, he comes back here at the end of the season. He gets in some of these practices and skates with the fellas, and his message the entire time was the same. I'm here to learn. I'm here to grow. And if I play, I play. If I don't, I don't. He came with the right approach. And then when he got his opportunity in game 82, he took that opportunity to show us what he's made of. You saw elite skating. You saw really good first help, but his passing, man, that's what stood out to me the most about his game in game 82. His passing, his vision, his hockey sense, it was all there. We saw it all. People can try to qualify that game. Oh, it was 82 and LA wasn't at full strength. It was still a National Hockey League game versus men. That something he's never done before. And he went out there and he just showed what he was made of. His composure. He was having a lot of fun. He was still smiling on the bench. You could tell. And it was really nice to see. And it was really exciting to see. And it makes you really pumped up and excited to see what a full off season this guy's going to get and how he comes back in September and approaches the Flames training camp. Because what we saw against Los Angeles on the road, not an easy thing to do when you're a rookie on the road in a division rival. He held his own really, really well, and it was really exciting to watch and just some incredible plays. That goal that you mentioned that he got, the hit, and that you don't see defensemen go down low like that after making a pass. They tend to stay at the blue line to make sure nothing comes back at them on a counterattack. Not Zayne Parekh. He has the skill and the ability, and it's just incredible to watch.
Yeah, like how many defensemen score their first goal on a tip?
Like insane, right?
It's crazy. Like I love it.
People comparing him to Erik Karlsson or what Lane Hudson was doing in Montreal, or I saw some Kale McCarr comparisons. If that's what we're trying to compare this kid to, and that's the expectations of this kid, I think he's going to go right up there to it, and he'll be right alongside those guys if he continues to develop and do what's got him to this point, because it was incredible to watch. Absolutely incredible to watch.
Yeah, and like, okay, so the one thing that doesn't get talked about a lot with Parekh is that I think he was completely unprepared for training camp last year.
100%.
And it's not his fault. Like, it's not. So, like, if you go and take a look at his summer last year, it was insane. So he goes to the Memorial Cup. He plays deep into June with the Saginaw Spirit, wins a M Cup. Then he goes to the NHL draft, which is just absolutely hectic. Yep. And then he goes to Flames rookie camp and takes up a couple weeks there. Then he goes to a Team Canada orientation camp where Conroy said in his year-end press conference here that Zayne Parekh suffered an injury at that camp.
Yep.
And then, you hear Zayne Parekh talk, and he said that he only got to spend about 2.5, 3 weeks at home training properly because of how busy his schedule was and because of an injury. So you take all that into consideration, and it totally makes sense why he looked off in Penticton and why he looked off in the Flames training camp. Like we mentioned, he was really bad. And I think it's just because he had zero time to train. He had an insane summer. He was injured. And, I think that kind of affected him in the beginning of his season. But once he kind of got through all that, we saw in the second, or I guess I'd say the second and third thirds of his OHL season, like he really blossomed. Like he really, really had a great year. So with a world championship experience coming up for him here, he'll get to at least playing some exhibition games with Team Canada at the Worlds. And who knows, maybe he'll end up actually joining the team. That would be really cool. But between that and then a full summer of training and getting in the gym and getting stronger, the 2025 Calgary Flames training camp and Penticton, or whatever Young Stars tournament they do, he's going to look like a completely different player. Like it's going to be night and day. I guarantee it. Unless he suffers some sort of setback this summer, like if he comes into the training camp fully healthy, had a full summer of training, watch out. I think the sky is the limit for this kid. I'm really, really excited to see where this goes.
Yeah, me too. And I really like the call by Craig Conroy as well to let him go do this world championship thing rather than try to force him into the Wranglers and into that lineup and into some high press situations down there. I like the fact they're just going to let this guy go. Have yourself an off season, a proper off season. Prepare yourself for training camp. And I like that he's going over to the World Championships with Mackenzie Weegar as well. So a guy that is going to teach him a lot in that Flames locker room. A guy that is going to teach this guy how to be a pro. And that's a really good person for Zayne Parekh to be following around. We'll talk about Mackenzie Weegar down the episode here in just a little bit. I wanted to really highlight the other guys that also were part of Game 82, because for me, one really stood out as well for different reasons. One was a little bit disappointing, but I want to start talking about Hunter Brzustewicz. I went into this game with no expectations on Hunter and his game. Just wanted to see how he would fit in against men at this level after a first pro season. And I have to say, I think I quite liked what I saw from Hunter Brzustewicz. You saw some rookie mistakes. You saw some really nice plays from him. You saw some steady play from him. What did you make of Brzustewicz? He played alongside Paul Hall there, who played on his offside, which was another interesting thing to watch in that hockey game. But what did you make there of number 48?
Yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you. I thought he was super solid. I thought he made a lot of really nice passes. You take a look at the underlying numbers. It looked like he spent a lot of time in the Los Angeles zone. I mean, the Flames just completely dominated when he was on the ice at 5-on-5, which is awesome to see. And yeah, I mean, my expectations for him are kind of like you. It's just like, he had a rough start to the year with the Wranglers, but I think he's really turned it on here in the second half. And, I was just kind of expecting him to hopefully just fit in, just like look like you can play at the NHL level. And yeah, he did more than that. I thought he was rock solid for the Flames. I was super, super impressed by him. And, when I project him in the future, you hope he can be a top 4 guy, but if not, maybe he could be like a third pair on your right side and play second power play unit, something like that. Like I think the future is pretty bright for this kid. I was pretty impressed.
There's always overreaction to Game 82 because I saw a lot of people on social media putting Hunter Brzustewicz in their third pair starting next season. I think that's a little bit quick. It's
Yeah.
a little bit short-sighted, but I like the positivity that brought to the Flame fan base. They're excited for this guy. He had a very good game 82 and showed us that he's well on his path to being a National Hockey League player, and I think he will fit in quite well when he does arrive on the scene. Very happy for him. As far as the other guys go, Suniev, for me, I don't want to use the word disappointment because you knew he was raw. You knew he had some time off between his last college game and this game, but didn't see a ton of flash from Suniev. I thought he was okay in the first period. But what did you make of him and his pro debut? And he definitely, for me, is a raw and is a bit of a project here, but a heck of a shot on that kid as well.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't have much to add on top of that. I mean, I thought the exact same thing as you. I mean, I thought his first like three or four shifts, you saw the skill, you saw the skating ability, you could see the release. I know he didn't get any shots on net, but you could see the release, and you're like, okay, there's definitely something there. But then I thought he was really quiet for the rest of the night. Mm-hmm. So I mean, and like you said, I mean, the kid hasn't played in a while. It was like what, 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks since his last game. So our expectations needed to be pretty low for him. And I think he's going to go into the Wranglers next season. I basically see the identical development path that Matt Coronato took. Because, Coronato played 2 years in the NCAA. So did Suniev. They put up basically identical numbers in their NCAA careers. I expect Suniev to go down to the Wranglers next year and play the entire season and, maybe get some games at the end of the year or, in a pinch if the Flames have injuries, maybe they could call him up. But I see him as a Wrangler for all next year. And then the following season in 26, 27, that's when I expect him to really push for a spot. Like I could see Suniev scoring like 25, 30 goals in the AHL next year just because the shot is that good. But yeah, I'm with you. His debut was a little quiet, but there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I think this is perfect. This is exactly what you want. You give the kid a taste, you bring him in, let him turn pro next year in the AHL level, let him develop. There's nothing wrong with it. 100%. I like that Coronato comparison as well, the path included. Let him come in here and just get up to speed. No sense rushing these kids, right? Like, we're not winning the Stanley Cup next year. Let's have no bones about what the Flames are going to be next year. So
yeah,
no need to rush this guy at all.
It's cool for him to play in a game 82 against guys like Drew Doughty and Anze Kopitar and 100%. Kevin Fiala and Quentin Byfield. Like the Kings, they put out a pretty decent lineup on Thursday night, and to have Suniev get to experience the NHL in Los Angeles against a lot of really good players, a couple future Hall of Famers, like that's pretty important. And I hope he takes that into his summer training and he comes into training camp next year and rips it up and has a great year in the American League.
The fourth guy to make his debut actually scored in that game, and it was an awesome goal from Sam Morton. He played just over 12 minutes in that game, couple of hits, had a block shot, and it was able to get his one shot on goal to go into the net. A lot of people, again, on their nice little mocks on their Twitter accounts, have Sam Morton beating out Kevin Rooney next year for that fourth C role on the Calgary Flames. Again, I think it's a little quick for the trigger on that, but I really liked what I saw from Sam Morton in the small sample we saw of him, the way he goes to the net, the way he plays and skates. There's something there for the Flames. I don't know if it's going to be next year or later next year or when he's going to arrive on the scene here, but I kind of liked what I saw out of Sam Morton. What about you?
Yeah, I did too. And the thing I really liked about his game is just like the forechecking, the work ethic. He's tenacious. Like, you can tell he's like one of those guys that just is tough to play against because he just never gives up on any play, which I really like to see. And I think you want to see those qualities from guys in your bottom six of your forward group. And then, he goes hard to the net. He scores a goal. Like, that was such an incredible moment. That was so awesome to see, especially for a guy, I think he's like 25 years old. I'm sure there were times in his, in his junior career and his college career where he was like, I'm probably never going to play an NHL game. Like, I might play pro, but I don't know if I'll ever play in the NHL. And for him to score in his first game is awesome. So it's a great story, and hopefully he can take some confidence here into the AHL playoffs. I believe that starts on Tuesday for the Calgary Wranglers. So, I mean, like, I do. If Morton is going to play in the NHL, I see him as a fourth line center. I don't think he'll be anything more than that, which is totally fine. But like a Kevin Rooney type, a guy that can penalty kill, a guy that can hopefully win you some faceoffs, work hard, and maybe chip in 4 to 7 goals a year kind of thing. That's the kind of player I see Morton becoming if he does in fact get to the NHL one day. But impressive debut, and it was an awesome story. It was a ton of fun to watch.
All 4 guys were awesome stories in their own way. We saw family members there having a really good time watching their sons and brothers take to the ice for the first time in the National Hockey League jerseys. Those are very cool stories. One more guy I want to hit on from that game before we move on to the locker room cleanout stuff. Dan Vladar sat on that Flames bench for nearly 2.5 weeks watching Dustin Wolf do what Dustin Wolf did. He gets the final game of the year. All the things you want to say about the game and what it was, what it meant nothing. But I really want to give Dan Vladar a little bit of accolades here and a little bit of credit for coming off of the bench, playing in this 0-0 game. But he played that game like his life depended on it because he's playing for a contract. He deserves a ton of credit for coming off that bench, being a really good teammate, and helping the Flames in that final game 82 get the victory here. A big reason why they won that hockey game was Dan Vladar. Just wanted to give him a bit of a shout out here and see what you made of Dan Vladar's last appearance this year.
Yeah. I appreciate you bringing his name up because everyone was so excited about the rookies and they were the ones that got, all the attention and all the credit for winning that hockey game. But holy crap, dude, that might have been Dan Vladar's best game in the NHL. Like he was really phenomenal. Good. Phenomenal. Like if it wasn't for him, that game easily could have been 5-5. And it should have been way tighter than it was. Like he was like making like cross ice saves. He's diving all over the place. Do you remember the game earlier in the season when the Flames just completely just played like crap in front of him? Was it in Florida?
Yes, the Florida game. That was terrible.
That game in LA reminded me of the Florida game where Vladar was just making ridiculous save after ridiculous save and keeping the team in it, and then finally late in the third period, the floodgates opened for Calgary. But yeah, no, you're totally right, man. He was phenomenal. If it wasn't for the rookies, he would have been the story of that game, 100%.
Not bad. 30 saves on 31 shots against Los Angeles to end the season. Really good job by Dan Vladar. All right. Zayne Parekh took a lot of the headlines the last week of the season. Dustin Wolf got a ton of the headlines before Zayne Parekh. But one Rasmus Andersson has seemed to be stolen the headlines from everybody at locker room cleanout. So that's where I want to start our conversation here about the year-end locker cleanout conversation. He had some really interesting comments about being part of the Flames organization, about his desire to be part of the Flames organization, his future. And then he had his quote about the fans. Robert, what'd you make of Rasmus Andersson? He was very honest, very open in his year-end press conference. What'd you make of what number 4 was telling the media?
Well, I'm planning on going on a big rant here, so I'd be curious here to get your thoughts on Andersson. I want to hear kind of what you thought of all those comments.
All right, stay tuned for a Robert rant. This is going to be great. I appreciate when National Hockey League players are honest and open with their thoughts. I really am. We tend to talk about hockey players and be like, oh, here it is. Here's the hockey speak. Here's the, you were coached to say this in the media speak. Rasmus Andersson really was honest in his opinion on what he thought of a lot of different things. And so I appreciate that and where he's coming from that ways. His comments about what a real fan is, that I don't always tend to like those kind of comments because you fan however you want to fan, no matter how fickle your fanship is or how hardcore you think your fanship is. Fan how you want to fan without being derogatory, obviously, of course. But other than that, I think Rasmus Andersson really didn't step over any lines here. He said what he wanted to say. He said what he needed to say. He put the pressure back on the fans and the media, and he did what we thought he was going to say. He just said, I don't know about my future. We'll think about it. And it was really interesting to see how he played through some injuries at the end of the season, whether that was to the detriment, like I think it was to the Flames, or whether that was to the hero side of Rasmus Andersson and giving him credit for playing through those injuries, however you want to see that. I just think that at a certain point, maybe players shouldn't play if they're going to be, a broken foot, something hard to play through. But that shows you the warrior Rasmus Andersson is, shows you how much he cares about things as a member of the Calgary Flames. He had a tough season, And he was just being honest for me at the end of the day. And I have to appreciate that and tip my hat to that side.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of that stuff that you just said there. And a couple other positives that I took from it, like the one thing I really appreciated is that he didn't bullshit the fans. You know, you take a look at like the last like 3-4 years here. There's a long list of guys who have said, "Oh yeah, like I'd love to resign in Calgary. I want to play the rest of my career here." And you know, some of those guys, you know, you think of Matthew Tkachuk and Johnny Gaudreau and Elias Lindholm, Noah Hannafin, Tyler Toffoli, just to name a few. You know, they all said they wanted to play in Calgary. They all said they wanted to resign, and it never happened, despite the fact the Flames offering huge contracts to most of them. I don't think they offered one to Tyler Toffoli, but I do believe that they offered some big money in term to every single other guy that said that they wanted to resign and ultimately didn't end up doing it. And I like that Andersson said, he's like, you know what, like I don't really know what the future holds. And he's like, it's been a long year, and he's you know, he's had a rough year on the ice. I think he had a rough year off the ice too, kind of by the sounds of it. So I think he just needs to take time and, you know, talk to his family about his future and go play in the World Championships and try to kind of forget about this season on the ice for him. And like I respect that. I like that he didn't lie to the fan base. I like the fact that he didn't just blow smoke up our ass. Like I really respected that from him. And, you know, and he's right. It's a huge decision. It's a major life decision. And he doesn't have to decide right now. He's got lots of time to decide on that. So, and, you know, like I kind of mentioned that I think he had a rough season off the ice. And the reason I say that is just because, you know, that year-end press conference there, that sounded like a guy to me who let social media and who let the kind of online criticism of him really get to him. Like he sounded like a guy who wanted to get back at the fans, and he wanted to call out the fans for you know, being pretty hard on him this year. And I don't think it's unfair. Like the criticism that the fan base had towards him, I don't think is unfair at all, because he is a major member of this team. He is in line to sign a 7 or 8 year contract. Like he's a major part of this team. And, you know, he had a terrible year. He had a really bad year on the ice. Points were down. The plus minus was crazy bad. The underlying numbers were not great. There are a lot of nights where, you know, you could look at him and say, hey, 2 or 3 goals went in because of mistakes you made or lack of awareness in your own end or a bad pinch. Like he really struggled. And so, you know, it just seemed like a guy who's very bothered by the noise from this season. And I don't blame him. I mean, that's not easy to deal with. At the same time, you know, the fans pay your salary, and you're a professional athlete, and criticism is part of the game, and dealing with criticism is part of the game, especially when you're not living up to expectations. So, you know, it just seemed like a guy who was really frustrated to me, like a guy who wanted to get back at the fans a little bit, to dig at the fans. And, you know, he was a little snarky. He was a little condescending in his exit interview there. And just to add on to that, like, just there are a couple of things I did not like about what he said. And I agree with you, John. Like with professional athletes, they're taught and they're coached to not say anything, and to have a guy like Rasmus come out and actually, you know, speak from the heart and talk about things that he believes in. I do respect that. But when you do that, it does open yourself up to criticism. So the couple of things I didn't like was, first, the lack of accountability for his season. Like he barely acknowledged the fact that he had a really rough year. You know, he was talking about signing a contract, and he was saying that, you know, it's not a great idea to sign a long-term deal coming off a year where you eat minuses and don't have as many points as you want. That was the only time he even referenced, you know, the kind of poor play this season. You see a guy like Joel Farabee. Joel Farabee comes out and says, you know, I had a terrible season. I think he said that it was embarrassing. Like, that's a guy that's coming out and he's being accountable, and you really respect that. I didn't think Andersson was accountable at all for the season that he had. And he almost ended up blaming the fan base for it, which was ridiculous in my mind. And then the second thing that upset me is, you already mentioned it, but like I wouldn't call it an attack on the fan base, but to call out what he called it the 10%, the people that are on Team Tank. And he says that if you're on Team Tank and you're cheering for your team to lose games, you're not a real fan. And I thought that was a bullshit comment from him. Like if you're a player, you never tell fans what to think. and you don't tell them what not to think either. Fans are allowed to think what they want. Fans are allowed to express whatever opinions they want. As a player, you're basically living your dream. You're playing a game. You're making millions of dollars, and it's all being funded by the fans. And a lot of fans on Team Tank, they spend a lot of money on this team. They spend a lot of time and energy on this team. And the thing I don't like about it is that, Rasmus was basically making it out to be that people that are on Team Tank, they just want the Flames to lose. Like they're haters. There's no reason why they want them to lose. They just want them to lose, and you're not a real fan. And I thought that was just a complete load of shit from him. I did not like that. I thought there was no context behind his comments. Like when you think about it, people who are on Team Tank, all they want is for the Flames to win in the long term. All they want is for the Calgary Flames to draft elite talent and build a core group of players that you can actually have sustained success with, like a Tampa, like a Washington, like a Pittsburgh, like Colorado. All these teams that they just want elite talent on their team, and they want to watch a group for 10 plus years have a legit shot to win a Stanley Cup, because the Flames, they haven't had that since the 1980s. So that's the reason why people are on Team Tank. They want a winner. They want a sustainable winner. They want to watch elite players. They are tired of being in the mushy middle. It's not because they want the team to lose for no reason. And that's what Rasmus was making it out to be. I thought that was just completely disrespectful to the fan base, and I thought it was a super ignorant comment by him. I did not like that at all. And just to add some context, like over the last 35 years, I wrote this at Flames Nation the other day. Over the last 35 years, the Flames ranked 27th in playoff victories in the NHL with only 52. And out of all franchises, and that's since 1990. So since 1990, out of all the franchises that existed in 1990 until now, the Flames are second last in playoff wins. The only team that's below them is the Winnipeg Jets Arizona Coyotes franchise. They don't exist anymore. They're not part of Utah. Utah's an expansion franchise. So if you take that franchise out, the Flames have the least amount of playoff wins of any franchise in the NHL since then. They haven't made it past round 2 of the playoffs. They've only made it past round 2 of the playoffs once since 1990, and that was 2004. They haven't made it past game 5 of round 2 since the lockout. And they've only done that once since 1990. We're not even talking about going to a game 6 or game 7 in round 2. They haven't made it past game 5. There's been zero playoff success, and that's why people are pissed off. So for Rasmus Andersson to come out here and say, if you're on Team Tank, you're not a real fan. Bullshit. That is a bullshit comment from him, and I did not like that whatsoever. I thought it was disrespectful to the fans, because there are a lot of diehard fans, a lot of people that love the Calgary Flames, love the Calgary Flames. They watch every game. They go to games. They buy jerseys. They buy beers. They pay for parking. They support this franchise like no other. And to have Rasmus Andersson tell them that they're not a real fan, I thought was just a really, really bad look on him. And it pissed me off a little bit. And no other person in the media is going to call out Rasmus for that. But I think that group of fans, they deserve to be respected. Even if they have an opinion that you don't agree with, that's fine. But to come out and say you're not a real fan, I thought that was a really shitty move by him. So that's my Rasmus Andersson rant. Do you think I'm out to lunch on that one, or do you think that there's some sort of justification there?
There's a lot in there, and I love it all. You clipped that part of his press conference, put it on social media, and the comments underneath that you posted on social media were absolutely incredible on both sides of the conversation. Man, I have not seen a fan base hate their fan base as much as this one does right now with those comments from Rasmus Andersson. Team Tank, I think, is a little bit misunderstood. People like Rasmus Andersson included are thinking that all this is we lose. Come on, lose, Calgary, lose. This Team Tank thing, and for me, is these are guys, and I might be part of this conversation because I kind of think this way, that are trying to take a longer out-term view of this team. It's not about winning a cup next year. It's not about losing 82 games next year. It's putting the team in a position to be able to have an opportunity to draft and develop elite talent. You're Gavin McKenna. That's how you're going to get him. You're Michael Misa this year type of thing, people. That's how you get these guys. Penguins had to suck to get Crosby and a little lottery luck. Oilers had to suck to get McDavid. You can go down the list of all of these things. So Team Tank, I think it's kind of a bad rap because the word tank is in their name, in the name of that title that they've been given. But all they're wanting here is they're just wanting a little bit of sustainability and a longer term look. It's fun to have a season where the Flames are in the playoff chase like we just saw. They're in it to the wire. It's a lot of fun until it ends and you realize that you're ninth spot again, right? That you're not going to get the playoff revenue, that you're not going to be in a position to draft those elite guys, and that you're going to have a really good draft and try to find a diamond in the rough. You have that argument on social media all the time where, yeah, but this guy was picked in the 4th round. Well, this guy was picked in the 6th round. Those are so far and few in between that argument to me is not an argument at all. It's just someone trying to make an excuse here. So I understand where Team Tank is and what they're trying to think, what they want, because that's what they want. They want success, they want sustainability, and that's an awesome way to be a fan. I also understand those who are kind of in the camp of, hey, this is a playoff team right now. Just go add a couple of guys in it and let's go chase the playoffs. I understand all of it, but I'm with you on the Rasmus Andersson comments. A player shouldn't be talking to his fans that way, to the fan base that way. I can understand him being upset at some fans. I get it. But your message and how you bring your message across, man, you've got to have a little bit of professionalism in there, and you got to have a little bit of self-accountability in there, saying, hey, we understand we weren't great this year. We were still in the playoff chase, and I understand where these fans are coming from, because it's 9th spot yet again. How many times have the Flames drafted between 12 and 16 in the last decade? It's not that we've done it. Oh, we just missed out this one time. No, we're missing out way too many. So I think your rant is spot on, Robert. I think Rasmus Andersson was a bit out of line, even though I appreciate the honesty. And I just think Team Tank might be a little bit misunderstood because people just see the word Team Tank and they just jump all over these guys on social media. It's all about sustainability for me and long-term success for this Calgary Flames team, because I much rather be in a situation where I can watch my team fight for a division title every year rather than try to get to the playoffs.
Correct. Yeah, spot on. Absolutely spot on. And like I said, kind of when I first started that little rant there, like I really think that the criticism this year really got to Rasmus, and a lot of that criticism was from people saying, like, we do need to bottom out, and in order to do that, you have to trade veterans. And of course, Rasmus Andersson's name is at the very top of that list. So I think him seeing a lot of people who want a rebuild and put his name in trade rumors to say, hey, we don't want you here anymore, I think that really got to him, because during his time in Calgary, he's been, I would argue, he's been pretty beloved. Like, I think fans have really enjoyed having Rasmus Andersson as part of the team. And this is the first year where they really started to kind of get on him and criticize him. And part of that is because of his play, because he just wasn't good enough. He had a really bad year. And then the other part of it is just the direction of the franchise. And I think those two things kind of added up, and it really kind of, it blew out of control a little bit on social media in terms of like the hashtag trade Anderson and the goddamn green M&Ms and all that crazy
I hate
stuff.
that thing.
Like, I don't know what that is, but like it got out of control. And I think Rasmus saw all that. I think he's been pretty invested in looking at social media. And I think this year-end press conference, him saying you're not a real fan, is his way of getting back at those people who want to see him traded. And I think it was, it was almost like a little bit of vengeance, or he's like looking for a little bit of revenge, or looking to get his side of the argument out there, something along those lines. Like, that's kind of what I think happened. And I think he kind of let his emotions get the best of him a little bit. And yeah, honestly, it's unfortunate because, like I said, he is beloved by a lot of people in this market. He's been a very good player, a good personality. Mm-hmm. He's been a really good spokesperson for the city. Like, he's always defended the Flames, and he's always defended Calgary. And I respect the hell out of him for that stuff. But I do think he was out of line with that comment. I didn't like that.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think a lot of us, Rasmus Andersson probably included in this conversation, forget that social media, it's less than 11% of the population have social media accounts. And so you're talking about a very small percentage of the fan base on Twitter or X or on Blue Sky, whatever site you're on, that are actually talking about this team. So it's not really a full true sample size of what the actual fan base wants. It's just a small section on Twitter that wants one thing or another. I don't think people hate Rasmus Andersson, and it's not about, hey, we hate this guy, get him out. It's more about hey, this team kind of needs to continue to reset it a little bit. Keep getting younger, stick to the Conroy plan. We'll talk about Conroy in just a minute here. I think on the opposite side of this conversation, though, of people against Rasmus Andersson and what Rasmus Andersson said, Mackenzie Weegar was also very honest in his outgoing presser and the way that he talked. And I saw a lot of people, again, a small portion because it's social media, talking about how much this guy is a captain and a leader and how much they loved Mackenzie Weegar. What did you make of his year-end press conference, the message he put out there, and the honesty that Mackenzie Weegar shared with us as fans and media?
Yeah, I mean, his press conference compared to Rasmus Andersson's was just night and day. Like, I thought, I've given my thoughts on Rasmus, but Mackenzie Weegar's conference there, like in some of his answers, to me, it showed that this guy he's a leader on this team. He's a future captain. He is all in on the Calgary Flames, and he desperately wants to win here. And, I think he is a major part of the culture that they've built here. And I do think that culture is important. I know it's been kind of blown out of proportion a little bit by the media, but I do think it is important that you do need to build that. And I think Weegar is a massive part of that. And man, if I were the Calgary Flames and I was in like their PR staff, I would get Weegar in front of as many cameras and as many microphones as possible at all times. Like, go on major national wide podcasts, go on local news, go on podcasts, like, get this guy out there because he's such a good salesperson for the Calgary Flames organization. Like the way he talks about it, like he talks about the city in such a great way, talks about the organization in such a great way. Like, I was super, super impressed by him. And, when the day comes when Michael Backlund either retires or he leaves Calgary, it is so obvious to me that Mackenzie Weegar is the next captain of the team. I mean, I wrote about that 2 years ago. And a lot of people came back and said, no, it's going to be Rasmus Andersson. No, it's not. It's absolutely not going to be Rasmus Andersson. It will be Mackenzie Weegar. This guy is a stud on the ice, off the ice. I am such a big fan of this guy. Really, really impressive dude. And I really hope that the Flames can eventually put together a winner while this guy is still on the team. He totally deserves it.
The one thing I talk about in business a lot is when people bring me their problems, other coworkers or managers or whoever it is, they bring me problem after problem after problem. And I always look at them like, you've brought me 3 problems and no solutions. Where's my solutions to help me fix these issues? Mackenzie Weegar is just that. He's the solution. He comes to the media with solutions. He's going to Craig Conroy with solutions. He's selling the team. He's selling the direction. He's selling the plan. He's selling everything positive about Calgary and the Flames. He is the solution to a lot of the problems this team has had over the last couple of years. His play on the ice shows it. His activity in the dressing room shows he's a positive guy who likes to pull his teammates along, build them up, and he loves to talk about how nice it is to play here and be part of Calgary and a part of the Flames. And that's a great message. We also heard that he spent 3 hours talking to Zayne, so he's showing the willingness to take these young kids and to be a mentor at this point of his career, and that he just wants to win and have fun while they do it. I really like the message Mackenzie Weegar put out there. I'm with you. Put this guy in front of a microphone every day of the offseason until we get to training camp. Let this guy sell this team. Let this guy sell the city. And maybe they'll bring a free agent we weren't thinking about that would come to Calgary and help this team push their plan forward a little bit more. It's really awesome to see. Was there anyone else, before we get to Conroy here, was there anyone else that stood out to you on locker cleanout day, Robert? Any messages that really stood out to you? I got one in Dustin Wolf. I really liked the message that Dustin Wolf portrayed, the confidence of that young man. I loved his hat, his Parachute for Pets project he has going on. Go to his Twitter account if you want that hat, cool hat he was wearing. But I just really liked how confident Dustin Wolf was, and how, he wasn't satisfied with just having a good season. He wants to do more for this team. He wants to bring more to this team. And I really like that message from Dustin Wolf as well. But anyone else stick out to you, Robert, on this last day?
Yeah, definitely Wolf. I'm totally with you on that. But you pretty much covered everything. I don't need to talk really much about that. Jonathan Huberdeau, I thought Huberdeau just comes across as just such like a good guy. Like
Yeah.
it's the type of guy you really want to cheer for, and you really hope he has success. I liked what he had to say. We talked about Weegar, Joel Farabee taking accountability for his season. I thought that was super impressive and mature of him. Morgan Frost had nothing but incredible things to say about the team, and it sounds like he wants to be a part of this for a while, which is good. Kevin Ball said that, his plan is to sign long-term in Calgary. I mean, as he should. I mean, this guy, he needs to cash in on the season he just had. This will probably be the one time in his life he can, sign a long-term massive contract. Zayne Parekh was awesome. I love the energy and the enthusiasm and the positivity and the smiling and like just the engagement. I thought he was really good. And I liked his messaging. And and then there's Huska and Conroy, which we'll get into. But overall, I mean, comparing it to the last few exit interview days, this was by far the most positive, and it really wasn't even close. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the guys made it sound like that the culture is a real thing. Zayne Parekh, the first thing he said, he's like, the thing I was most impressed by in Calgary during my time here was the culture. And he was talking about how much he loved it and how competitive the guys were, and how welcoming and accommodating they were. And once again, I do think that stuff is important. We'll see how the Flames are able to build on that and how they're able to maintain that culture, because that's going to be a whole nother story. But it was a lot of positivity. It was a lot of guys that want to be here. It was a lot of guys that think that they can do something here, and it was definitely a nice change of pace compared to years past. That's for sure.
Yeah, it didn't feel like these players were like forced to come out and talk to the media. It's kind of like they wanted to come out to talk to the media, kind of wanted to get their message out. And it was a nice change in attitude around a lot of these pressers. Let's turn our attention to Ryan Huska here. You clipped this on your social media as well, but I love the cherry picking of a quote every once in a while. His one quote that I really like is, "We need a little bit more," talking about the offseason and what he expects from the players coming back next year. We need a little bit more. What did you make of Ryan Huska, his press conference, his conversation, and his message to his players was, hey, we're right there, just need a little bit more?
Yeah, I like the fact that he acknowledged that there were absolutely some positives to come from this season. The turning around of the culture being one of them, which is great. But then he also acknowledged the fact that it's not good enough. We're not in the playoffs. And that's the ultimate goal for this team every single season. And I like to hear that from the head coach. I like to hear that from the leader of this organization and the leader of these players. So yeah, I was impressed with his messaging. I think he's just such a smart, well thought out guy. He's articulate. He doesn't get too high. He doesn't get too low. There's so many aspects of Ryan Huska's personality that I think make a great coach. And it's one of the reasons why I'm quite high on him, probably, compared to some others out there. So yeah, I was impressed, and I really hope that the Flames can have some success under Huska. I'd really like to see him be a 5, 6, 7 year coach of this franchise, because that just doesn't happen in Calgary. It seems like either you get 1, 2, or 3 years and you're out. I'd love to see him change that in Calgary, and I think that out of all the guys that have been behind the bench for this team over the last, say, 25 years, he absolutely has the best chance to be the most successful in terms of longevity behind the bench. So yeah, man, I'm impressed by him. I really like Ryan Huska.
More than once this season on social media, people are coming at me saying fire Huska, and I'm like, well, who are you bringing in that's going to do a better job than what Huska did? At the end of the day, that's a 96-point team, a team that was one tiebreaker away from the playoffs, and a team that punched about 12, 14 points higher than what they probably should have ended up with, and a team that really nobody had picked to be anywhere near the playoff race. This guy punched above expectations. He had his team on board. They fought for him. He went to bat for them, and he never was in the media trying to get clickbaity with anything or trying to get fined or anything like that. He was in the media. He was even keeled, and he said exactly how it is. And his year in press conference is no different. He said guys like Farabee and Frost need to be better. But at the same time, he complimented how they tried to fit in and they were progressing. He was complimentary about Zayne Parekh, but what does Zayne Parekh need to work on? And his message at the end of the day was, we just need a little bit more from everybody. We like where we're at. We like where we're going. Just need a little bit more. I think it's a really good message from Ryan Huska there. And I'm with you. I think I like him way more than a lot of people do like Ryan Huska, and I'll continue to defend the guy because he's bringing results to this team. Yes, playoffs are the ultimate success, but they were right there, and you can't argue with the results of this season, really, except for nitpicking a point here or there. He really did seem as well that he was in lockstep with Craig Conroy in a lot of their messaging too. I found on Locker Cleanout Day. What did you make of the message between head coach and the general manager? What Conroy had to say? He talked a lot about the draft picks. He talked a lot about the playoffs, about the players. What did you make of the messaging from the general manager?
Yeah, I think Conroy's been very consistent in his messaging pretty much since he's taken over as GM. And that's that he is going to retool this. He's going to keep this team as competitive as possible and have lots of veterans around while still mixing in some youth. And I mean, that's exactly what he said in Locker Room Cleanout Day. It's just kind of the same message that he's had for a while now. And, he's not going to rebuild. And if you want to rebuild, it's not going to happen. And that's the way he's going to go about it. I mean, he said, he's like, to blow up your team to get a top 5 pick, it doesn't make sense to me. That's, that was his quote about it. So, there's that. The one thing with Conroy is I almost wonder, or I don't know if I worry about it, but I hope he's not putting too much stock into the last 15, 16 games of this season. I hope he has like the bigger picture in mind. Yes, the team that they played so well to end the season. They played hard. Like it was a very, very impressive finish to the season and in a gutsy one too. At the same time, you can't double down on that. You can't say, oh, well, if we can just do that all of next season, we're going to be fine. I don't think it's realistic to expect the Flames to play that way for that long. And, Conroy did mention a few times that, how impressed he was with the finish and how he hopes that carries into next season. So overall, it didn't seem like he is going to put his foot on the accelerator too much for this rebuild, but I still think he's going to want to make some improvements. Like I could totally see him going out and making a Dougie Hamilton style trade where maybe he trades, a first round pick and a second round pick to bring in, a Bowen Byram, for example. I don't know if that would be enough to get it done, but that type of deal I could see him making. And the only other thing that kind of worried me was just I've just seen a lot of talk about offer sheets. Like it's mainly coming from Frank Saravelli, and he's mentioned he's connected the Flames a few times to offer sheets, and he had mentioned JJ Peterka the other day, and I'm just like, oh, like if the Flames give up that 2026 first round pick in an offer sheet, I think that would be such a mistake, because next year I could see this team finishing in the bottom 10 and having a legit shot to win the lottery to get Gavin McKenna or to get another, like a top 5 pick for a pretty deep draft class. So just if you're Conroy, I hope he stays the course. I hope he stays patient. I hope he doesn't make any crazy win now moves like James Neal or Travis Hamonic or something like that. Or offer sheets. Just stay the course. Please, for the love of God, just don't do anything stupid. I beg you.
You mean you don't want Troy Brouwer again?
I don't want Troy Brouwer. I don't want James Neal. I don't want Mike Smith. I don't want Brian Elliott. For the love of God, just be patient, please.
What about Bollig?
Okay, I'll take Bollig.
I'm right there with you. I like the messaging overall from Conroy. I too worry about a couple of small things, but every general manager is going to have one or two things you're always going to worry about. With True Living, it's, can you lose your phone already? It's July 1st. Just put your phone away. With other guys, so every general manager has its thing you want to just, you want them to be wary of. I do like the messaging, though, that Conroy is trying to stick to the age group of these guys, those 22 to 26-year-old guys that come in there and help the team. So I have a little bit of faith that he's not going to go out there and sign, Aaron Ekblad for 7 years, like $9 million a year type of thing. I have faith that he's going to not do the big mistake like that. I have faith that the offer sheet thing is going to go away as well, because we hear every year, especially from saying Saravelli, how it's the offer sheet of summer of offer sheets, and it never comes to fruition. The exception was the Broberg one last year and the Holloway one. So we don't see these offer sheets as much as Frank Saravelli claims it's going to be the summer of offer sheets. And if he does do an offer sheet, I hope he's smart about it. Like the JJ Peterka, keep your first round draft pick, please, Craig. Just for the love of, don't go out there and go crazy just because your team had a good final 16, 17 games of the season. Stick to your own plan, stick to your own words. And I think we're going to see that from Craig Conroy. I have faith that we're going to see that from Craig Conroy because there's a lot of internal work that he's got to get done here. What does he do with Rasmus Andersson? He's got a bucket load of RFAs to take a look at, starting with Morgan Frost and Kevin Ball, to name a couple of guys that need contracts here. So let's worry about our in-house stuff. Worry about continually having good drafts. Worry about continually building from the inside out, and then go supplement with a trade or two. Just be smart about it. But overall, I think locker cleanout day was a really positive one for the Flames, for the Flame fans, and they should be excited about the direction of this team. Whether their team tank, whether their team let's make the playoffs, whether they're in the middle somewhere, you should all be excited that we have a general manager who seems to have his head on his shoulders and have a plan, and we seem to have a head coach who's in lockstep with that plan and has a message, has the ability to send the message to his players to be in lockstep as well. And we have players here that are buying into those messages, like Mackenzie Weegar, like Morgan Frost, and so on and so forth with these guys. And it's fun to see. So heartbreak end of the year, but there is positivity around the Flames and around what we heard on Locker Room Cleanout Day. Final word to you, Robert, on Locker Room Cleanout Day. Anything else that stuck out to you that we need to bring up on the show today? Anything else that stuck out in your mind, a message or anything for us fans?
No, I mean, just I like all the messages. The fact that they do have a culture in place, and hopefully one that they can continue to build on and maintain, is very exciting. And like you said, there are some things to be very positive about when it comes to this team. I agree with you on the head coach. I do think Ryan Huska is probably one of the better head coaches that this organization's had in a long time. I don't know from an X's and O perspective. I don't really know about that, but just in terms of the overall person and the leader, I think Huska is the best person and leader that this Flames team has had in a long time. So that's a big time positive. You have an elite goalie in Dustin Wolf. You hope you have a future number one defenseman, Zayne. It's trending to look like that's gonna be the case. And you have a lot of other good prospects in the system. You need probably 2 or 3 more guys who are upper echelon, 2 or 3 more guys who are elite, guys that can be a top pairing defenseman or a first line forward. They're still missing. I would argue probably like 3 of those guys. So Conroy's got his work cut out for him. He's got to find these diamonds in the rough in the late rounds of the draft. He's got to hit home runs in the first and second round. He's got to make, some big time trades. If a Jack Eichel type of player becomes available again, he has to pounce on that, because with the way this team's trending, they're not going to finish in the bottom of the league standings, especially with Wolf and net. So Conroy's got to find different ways to bring in elite talents, and we'll see how that goes. They found some pretty good players in the draft over these years, but they do need to find that elite guy. But like you said, heading into the offseason here, there's quite a bit to be positive about with this team for sure.
It absolutely is a massive offseason for the Flames. We've got to remember that, it's a 3 to 5 year plan, and we're headed into the second offseason for Craig Conroy here. So let's give this guy time to work and put this plan together. Excited for what the future holds. We could go on for a couple more hours here, Robert, with all the things to talk about around the Flames. We'll stop here for this week. We'll be back next week with some more. What's coming up from Flames Nation from you? Where can the folks find you and your work as well?
Yeah, just follow Flames Nation on social media. I'm posting lots of kind of old playoff content, including today. So on Monday, I posted that it was the 18-year anniversary of the Jamie McLennan slash to Johan Franzen's gut. One of the more infamous moments in Flames history. I don't know if you knew this. That was Jamie McLennan's final game in the NHL.
It was. He still owes them the suspension. I heard it on Barnburner a couple of times where he tells the story. He still owes the NHL. Was it 4 games or something like that on that suspension?
Yeah. What a crazy way to finish your NHL career. Like, that's unbelievable.
It's a great way to go out.
So good. And Franzen deserved it, man. Franzen, that guy was a pain in the ass in front of the net. He made Kiprusoff's life a living hell.
Yeah.
I'm with McLennan on that one. But anyway, follow Flame Station, and another great episode today. That was a really fun chat.
Yeah, it was a good chat. We're gonna get into more of this off-season stuff next week as well. We didn't even hit the culture conversation that's all over social media. We'll definitely get to that. Check out Robert at Ring of Fire CGY across social media. I'm Vintage Johnny 84 across social media. And of course, the show is Red Mile Rundown as well. Thank you so much for making us a part of your podcast rotation. Continually enjoy the playoffs. We haven't even talked playoffs yet, Robert, either. Lots of that coming up on the podcast. We'll see you guys next week. Thanks for